Palworld is the newest game of 2024, and it is taking the internet by absolute storm. This game combines a lot of the most amazing aspects of survival games and monster hunting, also throw in an open world experience, and I mean absolutely massive map with lots to explore. But starting out can be a little bit daunting because there's a lot to learn in this game, and it's not like Pokemon, it's not like Ark Survival Evolved, it's really not like any other game that you have played before. So I'm going to tell you my top 10 tips for starting out in this game, but please hit that like button if you find any of these tips useful. It helps out the channel, and also drop a comment down below if there's something that I've missed and not included in this video or I've skipped over, because there's just way too much to cover in such a short video. I'm sure you guys also have lots of cool ideas and important tips for other new players. So let me go ahead and tell you my top 10 tips for starting out in Palworld. The first thing that you're going to need to know is that there are more than 100 different species of pals. Now, these species can be divided into 4 categories. There are your regular pals that you just see out and about in the wild. The second type of pals are lucky pals. These are also known as shiny pals. They spawn in the wild. They are slightly larger than the regular pals. However, when you encounter them, you will hear a kind of like a music or a twinkling noise, and they will be sparkling or shining. The third type are alphas. Alphas tend to be much larger than regular pals when they spawn as a boss in the world, or they are also available as creatures to be caught from dungeons. Now, the alpha pals will be marked with a special symbol both in the wild and in their pal box inventory, and you'll always be able to tell that a pal is an alpha pal because of this. The final category of pals are what we call subspecies. Subspecies are breedable, and you can hatch them from eggs, or they can be found in the wild. The majority of subspecies appear similar to another species. However, they will have different colors and different abilities compared to their original counterparts. So now that we've talked about the different types of pals, let's talk about catching. All right, catching is really important because in order to get pals in this world, besides hatching them, the only other way is to catch them. Now, when you're starting off in Palworld, the easiest way to catch a creature is to weaken it by attacking it, either through melee or with another pal, and then throwing a pal sphere at it. You do receive a higher catch rate if you throw a pal sphere from behind the creature. Another way to increase your catch rate is through effigies. Lift monk effigies can be found in the wild as these glowing green statues, and they're very easy to spot at night. Once you've collected a number of effigies, all you're going to do is need to go to a statue of power, either by finding one in the wild or by crafting one and placing it in your base. You'll be then able to use the effigies to increase your catch rate. The third tip that I have for you is about leveling. Everybody wants to know how to level up fast, and the best way to level up fast is to catch pals. If you catch 10 of each type of pal, you'll be able to get XP bonuses for each level. Hatching eggs also works for this XP bonus, so the best way to level up fast is to catch 10 of each pal or hatch them. Speaking of hatching, let's move on to our fourth tip. The fourth tip is about eggs and the incubator. Eggs are an amazing way to not only encounter new and rare pals, but also get that XP bonus. The only way to hatch eggs is to unlock the incubator, and the way that you can unlock an incubator is by battling a real-world alpha and getting an ancient technology point. Luckily, the incubator is unlocked with only 1 ancient technology point, and then you can craft as many as you want from there. There are 3 different categories of eggs. There are regular common eggs, there are the large eggs, and there are huge eggs. So my number 1 thing that I recommend doing is getting the egg incubator and going around and collecting eggs. It's really one of the best ways to unlock some of the coolest pals in this game. Now, tip number 5, let's talk about pal abilities and skills. This is super duper important because it affects not only your battling aspect, but also your farming in your base, which will be tip 6. The first thing is obviously going to be just their stats. They're going to have HP, they're going to have food, they're going to have something called sanity or san, attack, defense, and work speed. Attack and defense will be able to change depending on the pal's stats. However, work speed is the same across all pals of that species. Now let's talk about 3 other important things when it comes to looking at pals. The first one is passive skills. If you go into a pal's stats and you're taking a look at them, they can have both positive and negative skills. Now, this particular creature has 4 passive skills. Now, why are these skills so important? Well, some of these skills can actually affect how they work in a base. Second important skill that we need to talk about are the partner skills. Partner skills are this kind of special skill that creatures can get by being your partner in the game. But these skills don't only affect when you are riding them or have them as your buddy, but also when they're in your farm. Now, these partner skills are great because they can do things like increasing damage or increasing defense. They can also include passive things like protecting you from the heat or the cold. And they can even involve farming. Now, the third skill we're going to talk about are the active skills. These are their attacks, or what they're able to do to damage other pals. So you have a main attack up at the top, then you can unlock up to 2 additional attacks depending on the level and the abilities of your pal. As your pal levels up, it will unlock more active skills. All right, now it's time to talk about base farming. Base farming is really, really important. The ultimate goal of this game is to not have to farm everything by hand, but to have your pals do the majority of the work for you. So one of the most important things when you're starting out fresh is organizing your base in a way that is productive. The first thing that you need to know is obviously that you can unlock things in your technology tree, and that is what you can use to build your base. There's regular technology and then there's ancient technology. As I explained previously, ancient technology points come from defeating real-world bosses or alphas. All right, you can't necessarily get the ancient technology points from defeating the creatures in the dungeons, even though they're considered alphas. But the ones that appear on the map as those little circular icons, those are the ones that you can defeat and get those ancient technology points. Regular technology points only come from leveling up, and then occasionally you can get a schematic that will also increase your technology points. Now, let's talk about actually farming with our pals. This is super important. In the technology tree, you unlock a lot of things, and one of those things that you get are these infrastructure abilities. So you get these items that are there to help your pals. All right, pals work, and what happens when they work is they get hungry, but then they also lose sanity. Now, when you're looking at a pal's sanity, you can see it as the SAN. Pal mental stability decreases when working and recovers when they are taking a break or sleeping. Unfortunately, if you let your pal's mental stability decrease too much, it will cause problems. Your pals can become hurt. They can also become depressed. And what happens when that happens is their work efficiency decreases. They also start slacking off more, and they're just generally unhappy and they look really sad. So definitely try to keep your pal's sanity up as high as possible. So that leads us to the most important thing about base farming, and that is putting the correct pals in your base to farm the correct things. There are a variety of things that pals are able to do in your base. Now let me explain 2 of the most important things. So when you go into your pal stats, you're going to see something called work suitability on the right-hand side under stats. There are 12 different categories, including kindling, planting, handiwork, lumbering, medicine production, transporting, watering, electricity, gathering, mining, cooling, and farming, as indicated by these icons. Now, pals can have a variety of abilities here, and it just depends on the species. Some species are better at planting, some species are better at mining. Some species can be good at multiples of these. This particular war sect, for example, has the ability to do planting, handiwork, lumbering, and transporting. All war sects will have these same 4 work suitabilities and the same levels of work suitability. When you're starting off, you want to try to balance as many of these as you possibly can, so that way you have all of the different categories covered, and especially if you're focusing on a certain thing such as farming, you're going to want to have more pals with those traits or abilities in your base. Tip number 7 is about shields. This is actually something I really didn't pay much attention to for the first 40 hours of gameplay. However, I've learned that shields can be super useful, and let me explain why. So let me show you what happens when you take damage from a creature when you're wearing a shield. Essentially what happens, that creature will attack you, and rather than taking directly from your HP, it takes it from the shield first. Now once you're out of battle, that shield will regen and you'll be able to have it fully restored. All right, moving on to tip number 8. This is about money. Money isn't really the most important thing in the game. However, it can be very useful for a number of reasons. And honestly, money is really easy to get. The first way to get money is to go around and collect the chests that you see sitting on the ground. Now, the second way to get money is by selling items and pals. There are different merchants that do different things. There's the regular wandering merchant, which deals in items. Unfortunately, with this guy, you have to have the item on you in order to sell it. You can't access your inventory back at your base. However, you can actually throw him into a pal sphere and put him to work in your base. Is this the best method? I don't know. It's up to you if you decide you want to do that. Now, the other person that you can talk to is the pal merchant. The pal merchant will also buy and sell pals to you. Now, this guy deals in some pretty regular pals, and the most I've really seen is around maybe 5,000 or 6,000 for a pal. He doesn't usually have anything too rare. However, they do have different stats. Now, the third way to get money, and this is probably going to be the best way for most people, is to have a farming Mao. So that means you're going to have a Mao, which is basically this black Egyptian looking cat that you put in your base. Maos have the ability to dig up gold while they are in the base, and as long as you have a ranch. If you have a ranch unlocked and in your base, essentially what will happen is Maos will dig up money for you and make you all that extra gold that you could ever possibly want. Now let's talk about the black market. This is tip number 9, and honestly one that I think is super cool. And I didn't even know that this guy was actually a person. I thought he was a boss when I first saw him because honestly, he's pretty gosh darn creepy. Now these dudes do spawn all around the map, and I've managed to find about 4 of them. The easiest one to find is going to be located right near the starting area in this little cave. It's kind of like a mining shaft cave, and you just go down and he's the only thing in here. Now, once you talk to him, he's gonna tell you about how he deals in some contraband, all right? So you can either buy or sell this contraband. This is basically just kind of rare pals. So if you click on it, you'll be able to actually see some really cool pals that you wouldn't normally have access to, especially early in the game. Now let's talk about the final tip, and that is dungeons. Dungeons are fantastic. I really enjoy doing them, and there's a lot of benefits to doing dungeons. Dungeons not only have crates that you can farm, you can also encounter syndicate members in there, and you can get some resources from them as well. And they also have a variety of relatively rare resources, including palladium and sulfur and iron ore. Now, every dungeon has multiple crates in it, but they also have a kind of a boss, an end boss with an alpha. Before you leave the dungeon, after you defeat the alphas, make sure you grab those 2 free crates at the end. All right, there you have it, guys. These are my top tips and tricks for starting out in Palworld. I hope you found these useful. I think that these are the things that most people need to know, especially early game. There are so many different features to this game, and I think that learning all of them definitely takes a lot of time and energy. However, it is so worth learning about all these different aspects to enhance your experience and also make your gameplay efficient, because at the end of the day, you want to spend time catching and exploring, not whacking rocks like you do in every other survival game. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure you hit that like button and of course subscribe if you're new here. I really appreciate it. It helps out the channel a whole bunch. And let me know in the comments down below, what other tips and tricks do you have for new players? So that way, if I didn't cover it here, maybe they'll be able to see it in the comments. And with that, I'm going to catch you all in the next one.